Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This week's video is going to be another crochet with me, and I'm going to be creating a new waistcoat design for my business. If this is your first time here, then I run a crochet business called 70s Crochet, and I specialise in crochet waistcoats. Recently I've been converting to cotton yarn and getting ready for spring and summer with my designs. I've also been inspired by a lot of old 70s crochet designs and finding them on Pinterest, but then updating them slightly and changing the colours. So my plan for this particular waistcoat is to use the basic granny square stitches and create a wraparound waistcoat. And after a quick poll on my Instagram stories, I've decided to call this the Paisley waistcoat. What you're most likely going to see is me figuring out this pattern as the video goes on. So if this pattern works out, then feel free to use it for yourself. And if it doesn't, then I guess we can have a laugh along the way. Before we get started, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already for more crochet videos. And with that, let's get started on this new design. Okay, so for this project I am going to need some scissors to cut my yarn with, and I'm going to use a 5mm crochet hook. And as for yarn, obviously, like I said, all of this is cotton yarn, and I've got some scrap yarn that needs using, as well as this brand new skein of yarn. So let me show you what colours I've got. So I've got this off-white cream colour, I've got this very pale lemon colour, I've then got this tiny little bit of a very pale pink, and then this, it's like a dusky rose pink, and then the last colour I have is this bright orange cotton yarn, which you would have seen me buy in a recent video, and I think all of these colours will work quite nicely together. So what I'm going to do is start off with the front of this waistcoat, and we're going to make 2 half granny squares. So to start this half granny square, we're going to start off with a magic ring and chain 3, and then make 3 double crochet in the magic ring, or magic circle, you might have also heard it as that, chain 2, and make 4 double crochet in the magic ring. I'm also using US crochet turns as well in this video. And after those 4 double crochet, I'm going to chain 1, trim my working yarn and pull that through, and then I'm going to pull on this end of the magic ring that I crocheted over to close up the centre. So you end up with what looks like kind of a triangle, more of a curved triangle. And now for the next row, I'm going to switch over to a new colour. I'm going to use this off-white shade, make a slip knot and pop that on my hook. And I'm going to attach this new colour at the top of the chain 3 that's on the opposite side to where we tied off, and chain 3. I'm then going to make 3 double crochet in this space that's in between the chain 3 and the first double crochet of the previous row. And then we will move on to this corner chain space. So I'm going to make 3 double crochet, chain 2, and then another 3 double crochet, all in the same space. Then I'm going to basically repeat what I did here. So in the space that's between the last 2 double crochets from the previous row, I'm going to make 3 double crochets. And then if you move that cluster over a bit, I'm going to make 1 more double crochet in the top of the last stitch. And then to finish this row, I'm just going to chain 1, cut my yarn and pull that through. And that is the second row. So now I'm going to bring in a new colour and attach it just like I did previously, and repeat the exact same pattern for every single row on this half granny square. But obviously, just like you would with a normal granny square, you're also going to make 3 double crochets in every chain space, and that is going to increase with every single row. So I'm going to carry on with these granny square rows, and when it gets to the size that I need it to be, or close to the size that I need it to be, I'll show you where I'm up to. Okay, so it's a little bit later and I've started on the 2 front panels. As you can see, this is where I'm up to. And what I think I'm going to do is start on the back panel because I realise that I'm kind of running low on a few colours here. So I'm going to see how far I can get with the back panel, continue with the 2 front panels, and then we'll see how much yarn I've got left. Please excuse some of the mess around here. We are now going to start the back panel, and for that I'm just going to crochet a very basic granny square. So I'm going to start with a magic ring, pull up and chain 3, and then I'm going to make 2 double crochet in the magic ring, chain 2 and make 3 double crochet, chain 2 again, another 3 double crochet, and then I'm just going to repeat that one more time so I have 4 clusters in the centre of this granny square. After that I'm just going to pull on this centre piece of yarn to close the middle, chain 2 and then slip stitch at the top of the chain 3 that we first made, and then I'm just going to tie off with a chain 1, cut my yarn and pull that through. So that is the granny square centre. I'm going to grab a new colour to start my next row. So slip knot on my hook, and I'm going to attach this new colour onto one of the chain spaces with a slip stitch, chain 3 and make 2 double crochet, chain 2, make 3 double crochet in the same chain space, and then I'm going to make a corner in the rest of the 3 chain spaces. So for that I'm just going to make 3 double crochet, chain 2 and 3 double crochet all in the same space. So I'll finish this round and I will meet you at the end. And I've just finished that last double crochet for my last corner. So to finish the row I am going to slip stitch in the top of the chain 3 that we first made and tie off. Now with this I am simply going to build up a bigger granny square using a different colour for every row. So I'll probably get back to you when I have made a bigger back panel and also when I have made these 2 front panels a bit bigger as well. So for both half granny squares and this full granny square, I ended up completing 13 rows, including the centre. Now, if you're wondering how I got to 13 rows, it was very simple. I used this pattern draft that I use for a lot of my waistcoats to determine how wide I needed the back panel to be. But obviously just work to your own size. If you need to make this bigger, make it bigger. And then I just made sure that I crocheted the same amount of rows for the 2 half granny squares as well, so it's even. And last night I spent some time weaving in all the ends at the back so it's nice and clean. So now we have all of this, let's try and form this into a waistcoat. So I'm going to start with the easy bit first. I'm going to start slip stitching the panels together. So I've got one of my half granny squares here and I've got my full granny square. I'm going to place them right sides together. I'm just going to keep using this orange yarn to attach everything together. I'm going to start in this chain space on the half granny square and slip stitch it to the last stitch on this cluster on the back panel. And then I'm just going to slip stitch across, and then for the last slip stitch let's go into the first stitch on this corner and then the chain space of the back panel. So this isn't a very wide shoulder seam. This whole design is quite delicate, I think. So what was that, like 4 slip stitches? And I'm just going to repeat that for this shoulder. Okay, so I finished joining the shoulders here and I've just turned it right side out. This is what it looks like. So I'm using the orange yarn again and I've just attached it with a slip knot on my hook. And now with this waistcoat, I've just flipped it upside down and I'm going to open it up So you've got this really long edge. So what I'm going to start doing is single crocheting across this edge of the half granny square, and I'll meet you when I get to this corner chain space. Okay, so here I am. I have just made one single crochet in the corner chain space of this granny square. And now from here, I'm going to chain a length of 6 inches. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this length. So I'm just going to make a quick note of how many chains I've made because I'm going to repeat that on the other side in a minute. And now I'm going to go across to the corner chain space on this full granny square and slip stitch it. And then I'm going to chain 1 and carry on single crocheting across this edge, and I will meet you at this corner chain space. And here I am on the other side of that full granny square at the chain space. I'm going to make a single crochet and then chain 25 again. And then after that chain, I am going to slip stitch across to the next chain space on this half granny square. So repeating a slip stitch, chain 1, and then single crocheting across the remainder of this edge. So let me finish up here and I'll meet you at the end of this row. Okay, so I've just finished that last single crochet on this corner, and now what I think I'm going to do is chain 1 turn and make another row of single crochet all the way back across here, and then single crochet across this chain along this edge of the full granny square, along this chain as well, and along the edge of this half granny square, essentially back to where we first joined this yarn. And this row is just going to act as a bit of a foundation row for the hem. And I just thought I'd show you what I am doing when I reach the chain here. So in the chain space, I'm going to make a single crochet, and then I'm going to single crochet across this chain, but into these little back bumps on the back of the chain. So I'm going to carry on with this row now, and I'll meet you at the end. So from where I've just finished in this corner, I'm going to chain 1 and start single crocheting across this edge. Now it's going to be kind of difficult because obviously there's no allocated stitches. So I am going to basically just put a single crochet where I can, but obviously making sure that it's even as well at the same time. I really hope you enjoyed this week's video. I hope you can kind of copy the pattern here, but if not, then hopefully it will give you some sort of inspiration for your own crochet project. This exact waistcoat will be up for sale on my shop and on my vintage page, which is linked below. And before you head off, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you have not. Thank you for watching and supporting this channel as always. I will see you in the next one.